Good morning. Today we're going to learn what the differences are between the new router tables and the old router tables that we had. When you walk up to the router table, it should look exactly like this. The router should be all the way to the top of the table. In the unlocked position, when the arrow moves back and forth in this area, that's the unlocked position, and it should be unplugged. When you're finished routing and you're ready to leave, it should look the same way, so that it's ready for the next person who's going to do some routing. The first thing that's different about the new router table is the lock for the lift. They call it a spindle lock, but what it does is it locks the position of the router in place to the position that you have previously set it to on the crank that we have, just like the old router. Okay, and the same crank fits both the router lock and the router lift. You can always tell when the router is locked because you'll feel it snap in by the cam like that. Anytime that you lock the router because of complex routing or long-term routing, you want to make sure that you unlock the router before you make any changes here or before you crank the router up when you're finished or something like that. Okay? Because if you don't unlock the router lift lock, you could damage the lift mechanism. You don't want to use the router lock unless you are doing complex routing or unless you're going to be on the router for a long period of time and you're worried that the router might vibrate to a different setting than what you've previously set. And you're routing along not knowing or realizing that the router has actually changed position. 90% of the routing, general profile routing, can be done in the unlocked position, just like the old table. Just ignore that it's there if you're just doing profile routing. But before you start, you want to before you go to this raise and lower mechanism, make sure it is unlocked. It'll have play in it just like that. The second difference between the old tables and the new tables is the micro adjustment on the fence. In the back here is a knob that allows you to micro adjust the fence in and out in very, very fine increments. Now, when you do that, we need to talk a little bit about these knobs. We have two red knobs, two black knobs. If you're going to use the micro adjustment, you must tighten or snug up, never over tighten, the black knobs. Leave the red knobs loose. That will allow the fence to move with the micro adjustment mechanism. Okay? When you're using if you're not using the micro adjustment and you're just using the fence like the old traditional tables that we had, you want to leave these black knobs loose so that you can manually slide the fence forward like we did on the old tables. Okay? To line up your bearing with the fence so that the bearing and the fence are on the same plane. Keep in mind when you're using the micro adjusted fence, one full circle or one full turn rather of the knob would equal to 1/32 of an inch movement of the fence, either in or out. Now, when you're adjusting the fence like the old system we had, the black knobs will be kind of loose. When you get into the position that you want with the bearing, you snug up the red knobs. And that will keep your fence locked into position. Your back knobs, you just want to snug them up so that they don't vibrate and have the knobs come off. but that's the position you want to use. The only thing to remember is if you're using the micro, you loosen the red knobs, tighten the black knobs and leave them tight, and that will allow the fence to move back and forth along this screw mechanism that we have in the back. While we're talking about knobs, we also have 2 black knobs here on each pieces of fence. What these knobs do is allow you to move the fence back and forth to within approximately 1/8 of an inch of the furthest cutter on the router bit. We have 2 on each side, 2 black knobs, and you don't want to over tighten like this person did, but they allow you to move the fence in and out so that you can control the throat space here in the center. There's one safety first item that I want to point out, and this is a never, never, never item. Never, never, never route on a table where your workpiece is in between the fence and the router bit. Because as soon as you start pushing your workpiece through and the router bit grabs it, it's going to shoot it out and probably hit the person working at that other table or hit something on the wall at a very tremendous speed. We've had holes in the wall that we've been plugging here for years just because of that. So never, never, never do that. The routing always wants to be done on the outside of the router bit, okay? When you're using with or without the bearing, or with or without the fence. Always wants to be done on the outside of the router bit. Never in here. Remember that. We still see people doing this. The router speeds are displayed on the bottom of the table. Generally speaking, the larger the bit you have, the lower the speed you want. And the speed can be adjusted by the slide on the router motor. The slide matches this photo from the bottom of the table. The speed ranges from 10,000 to 21,000 RPMs. That completes our demo for today. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions or comments, I'm here.